You're listening to A Glimpse Inside on the Super Power Up Network, the show that affirms for people there is more to life, and it is possible to be happy, inspired, successful, joyous, and free.
Welcome to A Glimpse Inside. This is Wendy Perrotti, and you're joining me on the Super Power Up Network. This show is about affirming for people that there is more to life, and that it is possible for every single one of us to be inspired, successful, joyous, and free. You're listening to episode 3 of our 4-part series on Reinvention after 40. If you missed my conversation with the hilarious Jen Dagenhart in episode 1, or my first coaching session with Liz in episode 2, feel free to go back and have a listen. In this second coaching session with Liz, we'll be talking about turning personal growth into reality. I want to remind everyone listening today that coaching is a judgment-free zone. Good and bad don't exist here. This is a completely safe space to play with any thought or idea with the goal of figuring out what truly serves and what doesn't. So, welcome back, Liz.
Thank you, Wendy. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. In our last session, I gave you a bit of homework, and perhaps we'll touch in on that afterward. But a lot's happened for you in the last few weeks. Would you like to fill us in?
Sure. So remembering that, I guess the last time we talked, I was getting ready for the Pollinator Festival, which was really quite amazing. Actually, it turned out to be a lot of fun and also completely exhausting. But my daughter and her friend helped me out, and we packed up hundreds of seeds to give away, and I ordered a stamp. Oh, that's right. You had mentioned about not stressing over my logo. So I ordered one of these little stamps that you can get, and it overnight, they made this thing for me that just said remeadow.org, plant natives, and it was like one of these little flip stamp things. So it was a lot of fun to use, and we did that with just a rubber stamp that had like a butterfly. We had a couple different rubber stamps, and we stamped a bunch of little envelopes and put seeds in them from the Bee Lab, and gave away hundreds of packs of seeds at this. And I must have talked, I don't know, like for 4 hours straight, just to each person that came through our table. There were they estimated there were about 250 people that came inside and 600 that were at the whole event.
Wow.
So overall, and the girls had a lot of fun. They dressed as, they had wings on, and helped out. We made necklaces to sell, and, we didn't make a ton of money, but we did really make a lot of impact, I think, on the people that we talked to. It was really fun to see how many people were really interested in like the difference between native bees and honeybees, and just really had no clue about that. And we had microscopes set up, and it just felt really exciting to engage with that many people and see their responses and be able to put seeds in the hands of that many people. So that was really, that was a lot better in many ways than I had envisioned it, and different than I had thought. It's always, not exactly how you envision things, but I was just really happy to get the seeds out there. And
yeah, and yet we like lean into worry about how things are supposed to be and how they might be.
Yeah,
and that's a big waste of energy
ahead of time, which was not at all important. In fact, and I never even fixed the website. But I did tell people, don't use the email that's on the website. If you need to get a hold of me, here's my card. And I had made up cards that were basically, I just printed out columns of my name and phone number, and then use this little stamp to stamp in the center of it. So we just made them up while we were there. Well, and if there was any downtime, I was just there, like talking to people, cutting out my business cards. So that went really well, and I made really good connections there that are going to be good going forward. And then I had a week of hard field work, and in the middle of that, dealing with some of the losses that I guess I spoke to you that I knew were coming, but I didn't realize would be, I was really kind of thinking that my son's best friend and tutor would he's on he's on hospice, that we would lose him. And actually he's still with us, I think, watching a Nats game right now. And my dad died kind of unexpectedly. But I was at my job when it happened. And, it's always, I don't want to go off too much on this, but, I dreaded that day for a long time. And when it came, I was like on the top of this hill doing my work, listening to music that he would have been listening to. So I was already thinking about him, and it just came in a kind of magical moment for me. So it helped, I guess. And so that's a different thing, having lost both of my parents now. I mean, being a person that I have my stepmom still, and that's a huge force in my life. I'm not saying that, but when your biological parents are both gone, during that time when I heard about him, I was really thinking about my mom because it was her birthday, and gaining a lot of strength from thinking about where she was in her life and the things that she was doing during that time, and when she was in her 50s. And I think that there's something about when parents are gone that you're able to connect more with their strengths or something. I don't know. So anyway, was there a question I'm supposed to be answering here? I feel like I'm going on about something.
You were answering it. Yeah, I just wanted you to sort of bring me and our listeners up to speed.
Okay, so my dad passed away, and I went up to the funeral, and I spoke at his funeral. And I also took a bunch of these seed packets up and gave them away at his funeral to people, because my dad was very, he's a tree planter and a landscaper in his own right, and sort of a person that always gave other people work to do. So I thought that was really appropriate. And it really did help in my, I don't know, for my grief, to feel like I'm doing some positive work right now. So that's all happened. And I'm back at work now. Been back for, I don't know, a week or so, week and a half or something like that. Yeah. So that brings us up to speed, I think, right?
Yeah. So given all that's gone on for you over the past few weeks, we can pick up where we left off the last time, kind of on this reinvention and the energy that it's requiring of you to make that happen. Or there may be some other things that are present, having just lost your dad and being in the midst of a grieving process. What feels right to talk about today?
So I think I'm responding more to the first thing that you talked about. The grieving process is always difficult for me because I just don't want to, I tend to shove it down, as you know, and I don't want to, I don't have, it sounds horrible, I don't have time for that. So I am working on that in my own way. And I know the importance of that, and maybe that kind of ties into what the other piece, maybe we can tie it together somehow, because that is part of what is probably in the way for me, is kind of balancing those things. And so I'm going to leave that up to you.
Okay. So, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're just going to dig in, Liz. How would that be?
Okay. That sounds good.
We've been talking with Liz about a really intense couple of weeks. When we come back from this short break, we'll dig into coaching. And as always, give you some tips and tools that you can start using today. I hope you stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Welcome back. Today you're listening to episode 3 of our 4-part Reinvention After 40 series. I'm here with Liz as she works on turning her personal growth goals into reality. Okay, Liz, so we left off in overwhelm and some loss, quite a bit of loss, and some goals that you have moving forward. What feels important for you to be working on right now to get you closer to those goals?
So what I'm hitting up against right now is sort of the overwhelm of the enormity of the project that I set forth for myself. And I think, like yesterday when I was describing I had the opportunity, a scientist came in and was sharing seats at the B Lab, and I was the only one there, and we talked for a while. And so I had the opportunity to sort of describe my, my venture. And it was really good because I'm sort of honing that, now to be able to tell people about it. But it also kind of made me realize, like, God, sometimes I just really could just be satisfied with a 9-to-5 job that I just check in and out of. Just because can I really do this? Do I have that creative oomph that it takes to put all this stuff together and sort it out? And sometimes, looking at the whole thing is just overwhelming, and I just want to sleep. So, and that to me is like having just a job that I can, like, I love the bee job. I could just sort bees, and then I wouldn't have to wouldn't have to try to put all this stuff in order. But I feel like it's really important, and I really want to do it. I sometimes wonder if I'm enough to make it happen. So I guess that's what's in the way. It's me. And balancing, like, well, I'm probably just tired. If I can find a way to, reinvigorate a little bit, then I'll know where to start. I started looking at all the things that are in the way. Why did that come up? There was something I was answering. Oh, the other thing I did is I applied to a fellowship at the Halcyon House Incubator in DC. That was
Liz. Good for you.
I had stopped that application, started it and stopped it after my dad died, and the deadline came up, and I had like 24 hours to finish it, and I just thought, well, what have I got to lose? And I just sat down one day at work and typed it all in, because there's a computer there that's really good. And so I guess answering those questions, there were 14 essay questions basically, and that one of the questions is what's the biggest challenges, and that's really helpful to look at, but it's also a lot to sort out. And I was kind of thinking, if I focused on that, it might help me to, like, find the end of the thread about where to start. So that's kind of where I am right now, is thinking that. And I kind of wanted to get your feedback on if that's, if that makes sense to do that, or if it might just be like, all of this.
You know what? It's actually both. So we're going to test out a little question chain, because looking at what the biggest challenges are can really help us sort and clarify. On the flip side, sometimes it can be a rabbit hole that stops you from making progress moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so let's just take a look. You started out with a question that I get from every single entrepreneur, solopreneur especially, that I have ever worked with. Maybe I should just get a 9-to-5. Maybe this is just too big and too damn much for me. I think maybe I'll just sort some bees. And, it's important to listen to that, okay? It's important to listen, because sometimes there's some truth in it. So the test question that I ask people, right? It's no good or bad either way, to find out, is it really worth it? Is this project that you've taken on really your project? question that I want to ask you is, if your best friend all of a sudden took on the Remeadow project and that became her life, her project, her thing, would you feel relieved or would you feel a little jealous?
Oh, I would help her. Option?
You'd still be in. Okay. So yeah, it is an option. So what that tells us is, one, Remeadow is something that's hugely important to you. It's yours. And two, maybe an exploration. First of all, you're the first person that ever answered that. Well, I'll just help them. Okay. So there's something in that for us. Perhaps that means that down the road, Remeadow becomes more collaborative. So you don't feel like it's just on your shoulders.
I guess that's part of the thing, is I don't feel that I have to own the whole thing. I feel like it sort of has fallen on my lap because of some of the things that I know. So I want to share the responsibility of it, actually, because I don't feel like I can do all the parts of it. There's a lot of different parts and a lot of different, strengths and skills that would be needed to follow through with it. And I guess there's just no way I have all of those, so that's probably the pieces that I need to farm out. And it's good to identify what those skills are that I don't have, that I need to, help to put out someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So we start looking at this as step one in moving toward a collaboration, right? This is your vision is a collaborative one.
Right.
And as you lead this forward, know that you absolutely are enough. If you are driven to do something, if the answer to that first question isn't, I'd be relieved if this monkey was off my back, right?
Yeah.
If that's not the answer, then it's part of your mission. It's part of your purpose. It's part of your value system.
Right.
And when we're called to that, baby, we're always enough.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us feel like we are.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the fact that you're bumping up against that is just the human condition.
Okay.
I guarantee you, every single person listening in with us today, no matter who they are, no matter what they've achieved or what they're dreaming of achieving, underneath everything, the biggest fear is, oh, good Lord, what if I'm not enough? Mm-hmm. What if they find out? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So simply recognizing that you're always going to bump up against that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a natural component of being human is often enough to put it aside. Okay, voice, I hear you. I get that we're afraid. But the risk here is really none.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's no real risk.
I guess the other thing is I fear that I'm not fast enough to make it happen. I feel like there's sort of a window in which I can really whip up the right kind of following for this. And so I feel like I'm not fast enough at getting it done. So,
yeah, but that's a common Liz theme. That you're not fast enough. And yet, in a few months, you've created this thing. You've created a whole network of contacts. You've been asked to speak to some major populations, right, that are interested in this topic. Out of nowhere, you've gone to the Pollinator Fest.
Right.
That was a rocking success.
Mm-hmm.
And you, in the week that your dad died, managed to put in a fellowship application.
And I got a contact at a museum there that wants me to follow up with them and use the resources that I have to make a meadow at this mansion in New York, which is pretty cool. I need to follow up on that. There's a lot of things to follow up on. And I remember you saying something about the follow-up time is like 24 hours or, you got to really do it really quick. And I feel like I've already let a lot of my things go too far. But
Okay. So we're talking about two separate things here. And let's be super duper clear about this.
Yeah.
In the business world, when we're making contacts and networking and selling a product or looking for investors or any of those things, of course, the faster you follow up, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When people are top of mind, it looks like we're on our game. It makes people feel like they were recognized. Quick follow-up, really, really good skill to hone. That's on the tactical side of the house. Okay, something that we all work on and something that absolutely nobody is perfect at. Okay, on the non-tactical side of the house, understand that there are no hard and fast rules to this stuff, Liz. You're creating as you go along. It's never too late to follow up. It's never too late to open up an opportunity for yourself.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So as you're learning about how to implement the tactical piece of growing this organization, understand that best practices are just guidelines. And you're going to make those your own.
Okay.
Okay. And we want to dial into that stuff that underpins it to make sure there are no stories in your head that are getting in the way of you making those guidelines your own.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So if we were to look at what you just told us about so many things coming so quickly and follow up and all of those pieces, what about that was story? And what are the facts?
Well, the facts are people wanting things from me quickly, or I feel like it's quickly. People wanting me to speak, people having ideas about how the project that I want to do next year they can be involved with.
Okay, so dial that back to actual facts. This is like a really cool skill set that's going to help you everywhere. So when you say people wanting things from me quickly, what are the exact facts? So-and-so wants X by...
So the person at the pollinator festival asked me specifically, what are things I can do besides planting seeds that are native pollinators? What specifically can I do? And that was a really good question. She was bright, and I enjoyed talking with her. And we came up with this, she wants me to come speak about things that we can do. And really what I've been thinking about that specifically, things that people can do. And the facts are like not just planting things, but gathering seeds and distributing them. I'm not sure I'm answering your question very well.
Well, you kind of are. What you're saying is that there's this person from the Pollinator Festival who says, I'd love to hear what else we could do. I want you to come speak. And so that's a fact. And when does she want you to come speak?
So there wasn't I said I couldn't do it right away because I knew I had all these things kind of burning on the, but I have a goal for next September to organize this, seed bomb event after the elections, to have a whole a public happening where everyone has made these seed plugs and we hand them out to people or hide them in places in the city. And so I need to gather a group of people that are a task force, a grassroots outreach group before then in order to do that. So, basically all the seeds that I have now will be handed out to people who will then grow them and then have their own giant batch of seeds to do something with. And so that's kind of an exponential thing. I've got thousands and thousands and probably millions of seeds right now. So if I can get them into the hands of people by the spring and they can all grow their own stuff and create millions of seeds to hand out, we'll have a giant, just a horrendous amount of seeds to give out to people by the fall.
Okay. So this is another fact.
Deadline fact. If I miss that window, that's a whole year that's gone. And I missed that deadline of after the elections, which I've set for myself because I feel like that's a a really big like turning point for the country, and it would be great to have some beginnings happening then. Like that's when I want to. So yeah.
What I'd like you to do, and maybe this will be part of the homework, is go through all of your ideas, right? All of your ideas and the requests made of you on a pad of paper, and simply list the facts. So-and-so wants me to speak about X. Deadline, question mark, right? There's not a deadline yet on that. I want to do this seed bomb major event, deadline, September. In order to make that deadline in September, I need to do X. Deadline, March. In order to do that in March, I need to do X. Deadline, February, whatever.
Okay.
So the goal is to keep dialing everything down to just the facts. Do you hear how different that is when there's no stories attached? If I don't do this, then this. And we get busy with the stories, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. That's really helpful. Okay. So list making of facts.
Right. It sounds so simple, list making, to-do list making. But when you're in an innovative state, a creative state, when you're growing something, it's really hard to make a list because you're not even sure what direction you're going in. And then your lists just get enormous because this needs this and this needs this and this needs
this. And then you can't look at them. Yeah, you have to tease out which ones actually do have the deadlines before you can start making the deadlines.
Exactly. And when you do it in this way with the framing of what are the facts, no story, no if this, then that, no worries, no whatever, just the facts, you can look at it really objectively and then make some choices about where you're going to put your energy.
Okay. Interesting. You did that so easily just asking me those questions, and it was hard for me to think of just the facts. It's interesting how that was.
Yeah, for the folks who listened to episode 1, Jen, who was here, this was like the pivotal tool for her in her reinvention of her life, was learning how to separate the facts and the stories. And it's not just in the stuff we have to do, Liz. It's in everything. It's in how you see yourself, right? Do I have what it takes? Is there, maybe I could do this? Should I have done that? Should I have said this to that person? All of those stories that go through our heads that give us high energy or low energy, when they're not serving us, so useful to do the exact same thing as we're doing with tasks. What are the facts, right? And if it were a ruminating story, let's say you're ruminating over a conversation you had with someone about this fellowship, and it's really important to you, and so you're just dialing it and turning it over in every possible way in your head. Doesn't serve you well, right? Saps you of much needed energy.
So I don't tend to do that. I've thought about this before because I hear you talking to people about this. I don't tend to replay things in my head so much.
Not a ruminator. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm not. No, and I do feel lucky. I think I have done that in the past, but I don't seem to have it as a, more I go from one thing to another, and I don't focus on the actual facts of things that I have to do. Like I get more like I see the whole list of all the stuff that's around me, and like I tried to sit for a minute before we had this call to do the holding of the rock thing just for a few minutes. And the first time I couldn't do it, I had to jump up and do a couple of things first, get a pen, get a pad, do, blah, blah, blah. And things that I might need while I'm sitting doing nothing. And the second time I did it, I managed to do it for like 3 minutes, which was good, and it changed me a lot. But I don't know. I have an okay time letting go of the thoughts. It's the sitting still part and the kind of gathering. Anyway.
So that one stone exercise that we learned last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's experience today. It seems so simple, but it's not easy to do. And the more you do it, the more it helps with this.
Right. And that was actually what I was trying. Why was I saying that? Yes, it was because when I finally did sit there, it was pretty cool, because what happened was I felt really solid, and I could just feel like the chaos around me in my house, which is really overwhelming. I've lived in this house for almost 30 years, and there's just an enormous amount of stuff here that I feel like I'm constantly trying to get rid of. And that's like a big stumbling block for me, because it's like mental dust bunnies. Just knowing that this stuff exists makes it hard to concentrate. Does that make sense?
It does. And actually, when you're overwhelmed by things like that, this fact and story list can help there too, right? Instead of, there's so much stuff, I'm overwhelmed by all of this stuff, it's everywhere, it's, it's inundating my every thought in life. To change it to, okay, in this room feels cluttered to me. Your feelings are always a fact. Feels cluttered to me. These 5 things that I'm looking at right now, I want to keep. These 5 things I don't want to keep. You don't have to do anything with them. Simply getting yourself out of the story and just moving into the fact. What you want, what you don't want, what exists, what doesn't exist. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And but before we continue on this, I want to dial back a couple of seconds ago to where we were talking about rumination. And you talked about, that you get overwhelmed with not sitting still and what's coming up next. That is the evil twin of rumination. And I call it future casting. Right? It's the same exact thing, only instead of having your mind be churning in the stories of the past, it's churning in stories of the potential future. And go ahead.
I don't know. I don't think I get that far. It might make me. I don't have that particular thing. I think I just get frozen. I don't even think I get that far. I think I'm I'm before that. Maybe if I was doing better, I might start doing that. I think I'm a little like just completely overwhelmed, and I don't even get that far. I just kind of like operate in the moment, and maybe in some ways that serves me best, because I'm just like, okay, grab this and do that. Like I tried it because I'm so far behind in everything. I just have to like do something to keep going, because I'm pretty just have so much stuff going on. I don't have time to think about the future. I'm in pretty much survival mode.
So what's making you feel like you're stuck or you're not moving quickly enough?
Because I have because I've had so many losses in a row, as we've talked about, there are so many things that I know that if I could just check one thing off the list, it would be they're mental. I think of them as this, I guess, is a story thing, but I think of them as mental dust bunnies. There's, there's taxes I haven't done. There's the roof that has been fixed, but all of the drywall hasn't been done yet. And I have to get with the insurance company to figure out how to, in the meantime, I have to go to work and I have to make money to make sure that there's food on the table. And, and I haven't made the phone call to say that my daughter's on my car insurance yet. And I haven't, there's like so many daily tasks that I'm behind on that I can't possibly get them all done in one day and make money and get food on the table. I just feel like, so I have to triage the actual stuff that I'm doing in a day to get through it. I don't have time to worry about, what's going to happen if I don't send in this insurance stuff, because I'm literally not even thinking about it. I'm just going to the next task. That's how I feel. Is that?
So you feel like you're going from task to task without, kind of like Henny Penny, without any plan or direction?
Kind of, yeah. I feel like I don't have time to make the plan or direction, even though, in fact, I probably do. It's just that it's probably anxiety, just general anxiety around how much I feel that there is to do. but it's amazing how good it feels to get one of those tasks off the list. I mean, I threw all that stuff to the wind to get that Halcyon application in, and I was able to do it, and it felt so good. And I know if I just took these things one big thing at a time, or maybe, was able to knock a whole bunch of these little things off the list, then I wouldn't have like the feeling of overwhelming dread about all the things that I haven't done. That's kind of where I am. Not even to the point of like envisioning what will happen that I haven't done them. I'm just like, I know there's stuff out there that's not done, and I barely know what it is. And every once in a while I'll come across my list of all the impending things, and I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'll grab one of these and I'll do that. And then it's just one thing. And by the time I'm done, there's probably another one. Like, I need to get someone in to, fix the furnace now. There's just always one more thing.
Of course there is. There is no finish line, baby.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. And you do have a lot on your plate. And a lot of it feels really urgent. And a lot of it is urgent. Those are facts. And that's okay. I think what I'd like you to work on, if this sounds good to you, is that little task that we did a few minutes ago of making the list of things that you have to do based only on facts, really, really tactical, really simple.
Okay.
What is the thing and what is the deadline? And you might want to have some sort of a system for yourself that kind of codes those deadlines.
Right.
So something may have a deadline of tomorrow, like I need to get my logo choice to my friend because if she doesn't see it tomorrow, she can't look at it for 3 months. That's a technically urgent deadline because it's got a tomorrow attached to it. However, if I don't do this by tomorrow, my power gets turned off. That's actually an urgent deadline.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So some sort of tool,
that's actually urgent.
right? Something that sorts these deadlines into urgent based on negative or positive outcomes.
All right. I like that. I can use color for that. I like that.
Yeah, there you go. Visuals are so helpful.
All about it, baby. That's good.
Okay. So then the next thing is I want you to tune in to the language that you use to talk to yourself about the things that are on that list. Okay, because whether or not it sounds like you're not a ruminator. I'm not convinced you don't do some future casting. Tune into that language. When you feel overwhelmed or stuck, or in your word, overwhelming dread, there's absolutely story in there.
Right.
There's absolutely story in there. And learning what yours are is going to be the key to set you free.
Okay.
Okay. Because those stories are just one way of talking about the facts on that list. Okay. So when you look at that list and then you start tuning in and hearing your own stories about the facts on that list, if your stories are driving you forward, woohoo. No problem with those stories. If your stories are holding you back, then they're not serving you well. And it's useful to just take a look and say, what might other stories about this list or this item be that are equally true? Right? A fact is a thing that no matter who we are, we can all agree that it's exactly the same thing. Liz got invited to speak, and the deadline to get back to the person is March 23rd. Everyone could agree that that's a fact. The stories we tell ourselves about that fact are infinite. Right? So your one story, if it's holding you back, is not the only true story. and exploring for yourself what other stories about that fact might be can shift your energy in an instant.
I have to be really aware to think about this as I'm going forward.
Yeah, and it's something that grows over time. It grows exponentially. As
Right.
you become more aware of this, that awareness brings on more awareness and more and more, and it becomes easier and easier. But initially, you have to intentionally tune in because those stories are in your default mode.
Right. So I think I'm maybe having trouble using the word story because maybe it's not something that I think of in words, but more just like, a feeling about how something might be or something. I don't future cast in the way of like, oh, if this and this and this and this, I think, but I might just have that sort of feeling about stuff. Or
Okay. Dial into that. Name the feeling. When you notice it, name the feeling. This is fear. This is dread. This is overwhelm. And see if a story pops up with it. It does. Pay attention to what it is and see if it serves you.
Okay. Very good.
If it doesn't, you can ask yourself the question, why am I feeling?
Right. That's what I think is, yes. Okay.
And your answer will either be a story that serves you or one that doesn't.
I get it. Right. That's, I think, the key. Yes. Identifying why you're feeling something is the story. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So that's the number one thing that I'd like you to work on.
Okay.
The second thing is absolutely keep up with that one stone. It's a tool that will give you a couple of moments peace, and you don't have to sit with it for 3 minutes every time. You can sit with it for 30 seconds sometimes. It's a tool that will give you a moment's respite, both mentally and physiologically. And over time will help train you towards the kind of focus that you're working on.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I'd like you to work on is carving out time every single day for some self-care. No matter how busy you are, that is number one on your list. Exhausted and depleted, we are incapable of doing any kind of good work.
Yeah. I need to find in tandem with that some time that includes for me making space for grief, because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that self-care can be taking a walk, spending time with one of your kids, spending time with a friend, taking a bubble bath, reading a book. It can be just staying in bed and crying when you need to. Letting that emotion sort of seep through. Okay, so I know. I know. You know what though? It's the stuffing it down.
Oh, I know.
And I know you know this. That makes us ill.
I know. I want to just want to live for a little bit and not have to deal with death all the time. But okay, I know it. Yep.
Yeah. So this is living, right? Living and dying go hand in hand, and great things happen in our lives, and stopping to celebrate those great things, which I'm going to tell you, I follow you on Facebook, so you're great at that. I see you photograph beautiful things in nature that you so appreciate, and take the time to enjoy and celebrate those things. It's equally important to give yourself time to feel the bad stuff, to grieve the loss, because that's the way through to the other side of it.
God, I know. Okay. I know that's true. Yep. Okay. Thanks. You got me closer.
Okay. And we'll follow up with that. We'll follow up with that in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the big things that I want you to work on.
Okay. Got it.
Feeling
Great.
okay?
Yeah, this has been really good. It's a lot to think about and right on what I need to be focusing on. And yeah.
All right, cool.
Thanks.
As promised, I'm going to give you a tool. I'm going to give everybody a tool. And the one that I picked for today, I think is one that you'll like, Liz. It's kind of a brain balancer. So before I give you the tool, there are 3 things to know about your brain. 1, it has a negativity bias. Okay, so we're all wired so that anything that is negative, especially if it's emotionally negative, gets automatically embedded into our long-term memory. And it makes perfect sense because we needed to remember where the tiger lived in order to not get eaten all of those eons ago, right?
Right.
We did not need to remember where we saw the lovely field of wildflowers. We enjoyed them in the moment, and our survival didn't depend on them. Bees notwithstanding, right? Our survival didn't depend on remembering where those wildflowers are. And so our brains evolved to enjoy those things in the moment, but to not embed them. So flash forward to where we are today, and our society has evolved more quickly than our physiology. So what's happening is we embed every negative thing that happens to us because our physiology thinks it's life or death. Only it's not anymore. And we don't embed every positive thing that happens to us. In fact, we embed very, very few of those. And so what that creates is, now your brain is this database, right? From which you make every choice in your life. You go to the database and say, should I or shouldn't I? What it creates is a biased database that has facts in it. Okay, those negative things actually happen to you, but it doesn't have the positive things that actually happen to you. And so when you go to make a choice, you're using a skewed database. All right. Then if we add to that the brain is always seeking evidence to back itself up. It gets a hypothesis and it looks for evidence to back it up. So imagine now it's using this skewed database to find evidence. Chances are it's going to find negative evidence. Okay. And so our brain is kind of wired to hold us back because it's wired to keep us safe. It's wired so that we procreate. The third thing it does, we've talked about a lot today, it's that it tells stories based on what's in there. Based on all the evidence that it has, it tells us stories to explain all of the facts around us. So again, you can imagine that the stories that our brain tells us, based on the evidence that it creates, based on the things, the data that's in there, can also be really skewed to the negative. In fact, 80% of our thoughts are negative, which is kooky because most of us are kind of positive people overall. Okay? So there's this cool way that we can actually trick our brains into embedding the positive things. Okay? And I know you know me already, Liz, and you know I'm not like some kind of hearts and ponies, unicorn, let's put rose-colored glasses on everything, and it's going to be great from here on out, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about tricking your brain into embedding the 100% true, real, positive things that happen in your life, just like with the negative. Okay? And so the way that we do that is by making the experience sensory. So when you experience something that's positive in some way, if you take a moment to notice it intentionally, not in that default way where we just kind of enjoy it, but to notice it intentionally, to take it into our senses, either our visual senses, really look at it, smell it, taste it, touch it, the brain is more likely to embed it. Okay. And so if you create something, I ask my clients to create something called a mindset museum, this kind of visualization of a perfect museum space. So it might be, for you, it might be a meadow. For others, it might look like the Guggenheim. Mine looks like the Met in New York because it's my favorite museum. It can be any visual space whatsoever. Each time you have one of these positive experiences, as you take, and it only takes like 2 or 3 seconds to make it sensory, put an image of it in that museum as if you're curating an exhibit. It might just be a portrait of what it looks like to you if you're really literal. If you're somebody who's really creative, some of them might be fountains or statues or whatever. Doesn't matter, as long as it's a representation of this positive thing that happens in your mind, in your life. Now what you have are 2 things. One is a new growing body of evidence that is equally true to the negative body of evidence, only these are good things that have happened in your life. So you're balancing out your brain. And you have this place to retreat to in moments of self-doubt. Can I do it? Am I enough? Can I get through this? Okay, you can go into that mindset museum and see evidence of the good things that have happened in your life. And what's really cool is you can add into this mindset museum things that you yourself have created, accomplishments. Somehow I managed to, in 24 hours, put that fellowship app out. That goes in the museum. That's evidence of you overcoming an obstacle that you can draw on when you need it. You can also put things in this mindset museum of stuff that you've lived through, right? Things that you thought would kill you, but didn't. Those things go into the mindset museums of triumphs in moments where we are at our most desperate, times that we just lived through it, can be evidence of a triumph. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to start creating this mindset museum and use it to create evidence and balance out that negativity bias in your brain. It's a great place to go when you're not quite sure or you're feeling a little under the gun or unsure of yourself.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. I think I would draw it too.
Yeah. You know,
remember it.
I have clients who are very visual into visualizations, just go into their mind's eye. Clients of mine who are very literal don't want to do this in any visual way at all. They just want to make a bulleted list. I got a folder, give me a list, and that's going to be my mindset museum. And then I have some who create things that look like vision boards.
Right. That's kind of what I'm, because my immediately when you said meadow, it's like, it's so chaotic. Just like, it's like, I'll lose everything.
Yeah. Okay. So that might not be the right museum for you.
Exactly. But it's funny though, because I did have my business a long time ago, and it's one of the things that I hold up when I struggle. I remember, like, I did this. I had, I ran an art shop and frame gallery that was, had a school attached to it. And I, and so I have that as a visual memories of that.
So that is a perfect example of, what would be like a big giant fountain in the middle of your museum, whatever it looks like.
Right. In the middle of the meadow that's overgrown completely right now and needs weed whacking. Oh, I love that image. That's exactly what, and it's so apropos for my current state. It's like, that's okay. It's a meadow. There are lots of things in it, but I have to trim them to be able to see the positive stuff. And I have to, and to remember, it's just kind of overgrown. Everything's, that's just where I am right now. So I tried to explain that when I sat and, still with the rock, it was just like, oh, I did say that. It was surrounding with the stuff. I just have to sort it all out. So thanks for helping me with the tools to sort that out.
Really... Liz, thank you for being here today and showing up fully as always and playing all in and being willing to share your story with everybody out there who's listening in. I hope you'll touch back in with us again to let us know how your reinvention is going.
Thank you, Wendy. I'd love to do that. Yeah, thank you for all of this today. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it has been. I absolutely love talking to you. Okay, listeners, it's your turn now. If you're grappling with some stuck spots in any area of your life, or if you're feeling like there's more for you, but you can't quite put your finger on what that is or how to get there, I really want to hear your story. You can reach out and share it with me at aglimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com. Again, that's a glimpseinside.superpowerexperts.com. I hope you'll try the Mindset Museum. You can find that tool and other tools at that same website. And make sure that you tune in with us next time for the fourth and final episode of A Glimpse Inside's first series. I'll be digging into transformation stories with a woman whose name is synonymous with reinvention. Former editor-in-chief of More Magazine and Covey Club CEO Leslie Jane Seymour will be here. She's absolutely incredible. Don't miss her. Until then, big love.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.